go to the steel. On it. Welcome back to Guns Out Minnesotan. Today, another review of an optic sent out to the channel by Shepherd Optics. This is their 6-24 S series optic with the S1 reticle, sitting on top of a Savage 110 Elite Precision in 6.5 Creedmoor. I'm going to do a lot of shooting here from 100 yards all the way out to past 1,000 yards. So hang tight, and I'll show you a little bit of my experience with zeroing. Let's start off with the zeroing. This is a dual reticle system. That's what DRS stands for. And as you can see, I put a pair of impacts there, just a little higher left. You can see on the target, I'm holding my reticle, my crosshairs. Both reticles are on the aiming point. And now what I'm going to do is actually adjust the second focal plane over to where those impacts are. So I went up and I'm going over, and as you can see, my first focal plane is staying on my original aiming point there. It's just going to hold the place. The second focal plane is going to hold the place where I need to now bring up my first focal plane. And the first focal plane are the larger exposed turrets, and those ones are direct dial. The second focal plane is the capped ones that are in the rear, because the focal plane is in the rear. So now I'm bringing the first focal plane over and just making a nice crosshair inside that reticle again, and it's as simple as that. Right there, that was zeroing. Now this is going to look a little shaky because I'm recording my reticle and I'm resting my rifle not on a bench and not on a stable platform and not on my tripod. I'm actually resting this on a 2x4. So just a 2x4 hanging. And so it looks a little shaky because it's kind of like shooting off of maybe a tree branch or maybe your backpack or something. At 200 yards, that 10-inch target is definitely doable, and it does look a little shaky to you there, but actually for me, I had a lot of confidence that I could make those trigger pulls very smoothly. A 10-inch target is a large size target to be hitting with this rifle. And I was using a Hornady 120 grain GMX bullet, and that bullet flies really, really flat and does very, very well with this reticle combination. Again, this is the S1 reticle combination. Super easy. Couple things about this review you might want to know about. First of all, because I see this as primarily a high quality hunting rig and a long range hunting rig, this setup right here is going to remain consistent throughout the review. I'm not going to throw it on multiple rifles because I really like this one and it's a great all-around hunting rifle. This is a Savage 110 Elite Precision. I understand that not everybody's going to haul a 110 Elite Precision into the woods, but actually a lot of people do, and I will, because I don't have to hike miles in. Obviously, I could throw it on a lighter weight 6.5 rifle and get similar performance, but I'm pretty fixed on this rifle. I like it a lot, and I've taken it with me several times. Now, because of the hunting, kind of focus of this optic, I'm going to be using hunting ammo. I'm not going to use much for match ammo at all in this review. I'm going to focus on really common hunting loads, and I'll show a little bit more about that in the future here, just so you can understand the reticle and how the drop values play out with those hunting loads. I do have a Sunway Photo tripod here. It's the 3640. Or this might be the next one up, but either way, this one is, let's see, it's got the IB65 head, and I think this might be the next one up. But this is their biggest tripod right here anyways, and I'm going to do a lot of shooting off of this because in a hunting scenario, I don't have benches. I don't have really stable platforms to shoot off of. Most of the time, I'm almost like, just lifting the rifle up where I'm at. If I see a deer or if I'm in a stand, I maybe can rest against the tree a little bit. In a really good scenario, if I'm shooting out of a ground blind, which would be my ideal scenario, I would be shooting off of this Sunway Photo tripod. And I've tracked deer in the past, this last year, off of this tripod. It's really stable. It's an awesome unit. Usually when I'm actually taking shots, I actually move it back a little bit, so it's just slightly rear heavy. I kind of prefer that because of the way that it doesn't change my point of impact as much. My recoil is still controlled really well. I usually have a tripod with a bag, and I put all my loaded stuff in there and just make it really heavy, and I can take really stable shots, and I could shoot a deer really, really far with this setup, even with 6.5 bullets, really, really far. Some of you are, maybe your context is more of like elk hunting or moose hunting, and you're not gonna drag a big heavy rifle like this out in those situations. I understand that, but just to show the quality of the optic, the capability of the optic for groups with hunting ammo, I'm going to go with this. And so a lot of the shots that you're going to be seeing taken in the next probably 10 minutes of this video are going to be off of this right here. This is at 300 yards, again using some of those GMX bullets which fly really true, lined up nicely with the reticle. That's a 10-inch, an 8-inch, and a 6-inch target at 300 yards. And then I decided to put a little bit of that on paper as well. Actually, I think this was 129 grain soft point interlock. I think that's what it was. Yeah, it was a soft point round from Hornady. It's the kind of ammo that the average guy is going to walk into Fleet Farm or his local sporting goods store, and there's probably a box of this sitting around. It's not match ammo. It's not match hunting ammo. This was just a regular old soft point round right here, and this one did just fine at 300 yards as far as kill zones go. Hopefully you can see with that 2x4 there in frame that target is actually a 4-inch by 4-inch group, and so that's it's about a fist-sized group, which is roughly your deer heart or elk heart, certainly within a moose heart size, and it's making those hits just fine, making a group that's reasonable, even with this flyer that I'm about to have here, unfortunately. I don't know why that one's up there. It's probably me. That would be my best guess. I don't think the ammo failed there. Certainly the reticle did not. As you could see, the reticle is doing just fine. That shot landed right under number 4 there. It took me a second to figure out where it landed because I didn't see it underneath the number 4 marker. Using a long shot target camera here, the LR3 system, and some of the features can highlight it and show you where that most recent hit was. So I put a marker on that, and it's within the 4 inches, and I'm real content with that. So the reticle matched up nicely overall with a number of rounds at these closer distances, and as you get further and further out, it needs to be a little bit more of a higher quality round. Here at 300 yards, again, this is actually off my tripod and in a standing position. So this is the highest setting that I can get my tripod to, and I'm shooting off of it that way. So that's a little bit less stable than having it low and sitting on the ground and squatting, shooting that way. That's probably the best way to shoot off a tripod is kind of a comfortable squatting position, sitting down on your backside. But fully extended standing can be pretty steady, and so I was practicing that a little bit here, and as you can see from the reticle, I'm just holding that 3 crosshair right on there, and it's right in the center of that crosshair. No problem at all. Both the GMX as well as the Hornady 129 grain soft point did just fine at this task at 300. So one thing I've kind of wondered about is what if, average Joe walks into his Fleet Farm or whatever, Walmart, and picks up some Hornady 129 grain interlock. Is that going to work out to any distance with this reticle? It doesn't seem like it would match up super well just from the numbers, but I'm curious if it's close enough, if it's in the bubble, maybe not the dead center of the bubble here at 600 yards, but maybe it's close. So just for fun, I wanted to try that out. I don't think it's a recommended ammo for this reticle, but in case it's close enough for 600 yards and in, we'll see what happens. It's on steel. If you've never used any of this Hornady non-lead, it's a, what do they call it? They call it a monolithic copper alloy, the CX bullet. If you've never shot one of these are actually pretty decent. I'm happy. I'm happy with the performance I'm seeing, even at 500-600 yards so far. Not too bad at all. We'll see what it does a little further out in a bit, but at this distance, with low light, sun is going down, this is a pretty serious performance bullet. And I think what's the word, terminality, the ability to kill stuff, I think it's a good bullet for deer and critters and varmint, long range shooting like what I'm doing right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and shoot here at 618. My target indicator light has just been flashing. I think I broke that thing somehow, or it just is defective. So I'll actually switch to paper. I do have my camera up, my long shot target camera LR3. I'm gonna go ahead and shoot that, and we'll get some groups on paper and just see what this kind of stuff can do for me on an average day. All right, so the top there was a 6-hold, 600, that bubble. So it was a little high. The bottom blue, that's a 5-hold, not correcting for wind or anything, just holding right at 5. So it's a little bit low. I split the difference and I went right in between. And right in between, I held a little to the left, and guess where it is? It's in the green there. So I think that's a pretty competent reticle. It's going to do just fine there, but you might want to do your research before you head out and just start throwing bullets down. You want to test out your rifle, your ammo, your optic combination, and make sure you know what it's going to do in the real world. For me, now I have some confidence to know that it's grouping okay. It's definitely okay for that ammo, and the optic is doing its part. A little more practice and confidence with my actual data is probably what I would do next. One thing worth mentioning is that in this review, I did not do any dialing on the exposed turrets. And that's because I didn't need to. It just wasn't necessary. You could. There's nothing wrong with dialing on those turrets. I don't think there's anything, unreliable about them. It's gonna do exactly what you think it's supposed to do. They're exposed turrets for a reason. But I really wanted to test out the reticle and the ammunition types that I had on hand. So it's really important that I mention that. I know it's gonna bother them if I don't say something. That's the reason why, guys. I'm not scared of the turrets. They're 8th MOA. I know how that works. I've had 8th MOA optics plenty of times. But when it comes to a first focal plane like this, with the reticle design that it has, I was way more interested in trying out the reticle because the reticle could be really, really fast. And now that I have some data to go with this, I do feel like I could be really fast with this optic, especially in a hunting scenario. Well, I'm impressed both by the ammo and the rifle optic combination. I got my barrel cooling off there for a little bit. It's gotten a little too hot. Today it's like, what is it? It's going to be 85, 90, somewhere in there. And I've got lows in the 30s this week. The temperature is all over the place. The wind has been between 6, like right now, it's not too bad. It's been up to 15 mile an hour in the gusts. So I've been dealing with a lot. It's really complex to film a review during that. Not to mention, I need to make sure the ammo works with the reticle design. And this does. This is the Hornady CX. Let's see, it's 120 grain. Looks like this, outfitter ammo. This is a good bullet. It's a non-lead bullet, actually, and this has been flying super true. I'm so impressed. In this wind and the conditions that I've had, it was basically plug and play, guys. Zeroed at 100 with a similar 120 grain, same velocity, very similar bullet in BC specifically. And I zeroed that optic on the gun and started bringing it out to 300, then went out to 600 and 800 here, and I'm having really, really good performance with this bullet in particular. So if you're gonna get that optic and throw it on a 6.5, this is probably something you could look at, especially for whitetail. You're taking longer whitetail shots. I'm obviously pushing the limits for some kinds of critters. You're not gonna be shooting everything with this, but I'm telling you, I think this is a really good bullet. It's a great combination, and the optic and the reticle in particular, it's matching up. It's doing exactly what they advertise on the website, and I'm getting impacts in, a nice kill zone on my target down there. I'm excited to take it to paper and kind of see what I can do in this wind and just what's realistic. But so far, this hunting ammo is not too bad. The 129 grain interlock, I can still hit the steel, but it's pretty all over the place. So I think from here on in the review, I'm not gonna spend too much more time with that, although you can hit a big target. This is more so what I'm going to be going towards, a higher quality hunting ammo, because if you're taking really long shots, you should be using a higher quality hunting ammo with this reticle anyways. Now using that CX bullet that I was just describing here at 800 yards. That's an impact. Hopefully you can see that clear enough. That target moving back and forth. And again, it was like plug and play. I basically just put that 800 yard bubble right on there. I had to give it a little windage because I was dealing with wind still. Another impact. At 800 yards, guys, being able to own something like this, get the right ammo, and you need to have right velocities, but most 6.5s that are even made are going to give you adequate velocity, and here's what I'm getting. Another impact, consistent impacts at 830 yards. Alright, shooting on 10 power at 1,000 yards, about 10 to 15 mile an hour winds, with 15 being more so the gusts. And I'm shooting 120 grain CX bullets from Hornady. This wind is pretty difficult. It's shifting quite a bit. I have 4 directions represented by the flags right now, so I don't know what to do with that. But I'm going to see if that 10 marker actually lines up for the ammo I'm using. I have a feeling it will, because 900 was on, 800 was on, and it seems pretty promising. Forgive the wind sound. It's just what I'm dealing with today. It's very intense. I think wind will be my biggest difficulty here. I think that the reticle will actually help me with elevation perfectly. Just right. Looks like elevation is good. Impact. Just left. Impact. It is pretty windy still. Died off just a touch. And I'm going to try some 140s with that 10 bubble there, that 10 ring, and see what happens. I have a feeling that actually the 140s are still going to be relatively close or right on, and they'll do a little better with the wind, perhaps. It'd be kind of exciting if the 140s work with that 10 ring bubble as well for target shooting. Let's go for that clay pigeon right there. Yep, there it is. It's about a 10th low. Ooh, okay. Maybe 2/10 low. Let's go to the steel. On it. Cool. Can still target practice and plank with 140s, and the reticle is going to do just fine with that. Alright, it is exceedingly humid, but the wind cut out a little bit. Feels a little more calm to me anyways. And I'm going to go ahead and throw a few of those 120 grain Hornady bullets here at 1,030 yards like I usually do on my channel. And I will try to record the reticle so you can see what my actual hold is in here as well with my rifle and my setup, the way that I zeroed it. All that is a proviso. So I'm probably going to use the 10 bubble and hold, a few tenths to the left, so just a little bit. I don't know how many inches that is, but a little bit to the left for drift. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be on the big steel. It shouldn't be that hard. I might even go for some clay pigeons here in a little bit, depending on how the wind does for me. I'll turn off my mic and take some shots here. There it is. Hopefully you can see that target light. Definitely making impacts, but the Mirage from the heat and the humidity is getting pretty bad. I'm gonna give this barrel a break for a second. When you first get your Shepherd Optics DRS 6-24 adjustable objective optic, you are gonna have a couple of scope covers on here. This one is a 62.5 size. This is kind of like a plasticky rubber feeling. And then the other side for the ocular lens, that one is a 39.5. That's just the numbers on the inside. So these are durable enough. They're going to protect it, I suppose, if you're putting it in the gun case or in maybe a safe or something where things get knocked around, at least protecting the lenses, keeping dust out and things like that. But make sure you put them in your pocket because they don't have a flip cap cover for these, and you might lose them. Or you could just go ahead and purchase some dedicated flip cap covers because this optic is very high quality and it's probably deserving of them. Next, taking a look at the diopter or the ocular focus for the reticle. It's a nice rubbery texture on the outside, moves very smooth, but there's just enough resistance that I don't feel like this will ever get bumped on its own, and just make an adjustment. If you do need to back this out, if you find that you have eye trouble and getting reticles clear is difficult for you, this has plenty of range of travel. I mean, that's a huge amount right there. No matter what your eye issue is, I feel confident that this is going to do the trick for you. It's nice and comfortable. I do appreciate having that rubber on there just in case you get lazy and get a little bit of rookie bite. That rubber on there actually kind of protects your eye, so it's a great installation. I would rather just be real careful and have proper eye relief, but in case you slip on the bag or something, this will protect your eye and your eyebrow from getting rookie bite. There's a little bit of a gap between that device right there, and it doesn't screw all the way in to be flush with this if you go all the way to the right, but the reticle is sharp and tight for my eye just like any other optic. The magnification ring is glass smooth. I'm gonna say that this is premium, absolutely premium. This is the feel of something that, you know, has been handcrafted. Japanese made optic, you can definitely tell, incredibly smooth. This is on par with $2,000 and $3,000 optics, and the feel, there's no slop in there, there's no drag, there's no looseness in the components. I just feel like if I go back and forth here, yeah, it's sleeved on there really nicely. There's not slack in the actual ring itself, which grabs onto those two levers and moves the lenses in unison. So you're going from 6 to 24. It doesn't have an assist on here because it really doesn't need it, guys. This is super smooth. And most of the time, like in a hunting scenario, I'm probably going to be on either 6, maybe 12. And then if I needed to zoom in for a longer shot or I wanted to get detail, maybe I'll be up to 24 there. But a lot of times when I'm taking shots, I'm going to be closer to 10 or 12, possibly even 9, like I did in my last review with the 3 to 15 model, 3.5 to 15 rather. Just super smooth though. This is a high quality feel. Fit and finish on all this is very, very high. Again, it's a Japanese made optic, and I think the numerical indicators are appropriate. You'll see that it goes 6, 7, 8, skips 9, goes to 10, skips 11, goes to 12, and then we're just going 14, 16, and we're going to skip to 20 and 24. This makes a lot of sense to me as far as the actual magnification ranges that a person is going to use, especially in a hunting scenario. I think this makes the most sense. So if you wanted to memorize, 10 power is the field of view that's really good for you, whether you're doing target practice or long range shooting, or you want to use the full scale of the reticle and you need to stay closer to around here, there's numerical indicators for you for those common magnifications. There, 20 power is great on this, looks really, really good. 24 power still looks really good too. The ring has a nice texture on here, and honestly, it's so smooth. It's so fluid, I don't think you would even hardly need a texture on here, but in the wintertime when things tighten up a little bit, when the cold comes in, metal contracts, and it's nice to have just a little texture on there to give it a little extra nudge and push, and I'll give that more of a testing in the wintertime when some cold weather comes. Some normal Minnesota weather is on the way right now. Taking a look at the turrets, if you're not familiar with this style optic, it's a dual reticle system. This is your second focal plane adjustment. So second focal plane or rear focal plane happens back on this portion. These are your first focal plane turrets, which is going to happen up here. That's where it's placed anyways. And so when I'm adjusting second focal plane right here, that's just really to line up with the first focal plane. I don't touch the second focal plane on this style optic very much beyond that, or when I'm actually completely re-zeroing the optic for optical center. Otherwise, these turrets right here are the majority of what I'm going to mess around with or adjust, little finite adjustments. As you can see here, I'm going to go ahead and lift this. Now, these are not lift to operate turrets. These are lift to re-zero turrets. So here on the windage, as you can see, there is a witness line. And if I needed to adjust that, I could, let's say, after making my adjustments, I landed on 9. I wouldn't just dial it, because dialing will actually move the reticle. But if I found that's where 0 was, and that's where I wanted to leave it, then I would actually lift, move, and press down, and that's going to give me my 0 marker. And so you don't need to mess with these coin slots or these flathead slots up here. Coins work really good in these, but you don't need to mess with these for any reason. You can just lift and move to bring it to your 0, and then from there, you can just directly dial. It's a direct dial, not a lift to operate. I'm going to bring my microphone in for an audibility test with these and just give you a feel for what the sound is, and I'll talk about the tactileness after that. Hopefully, as you could hear there, I think the elevation turret is just a little bit louder and more tactile feeling, but there's very positive detents on the windage as well. I don't actually have any concerns about that. The difference in audibility between the two, quite honestly, I'm not going to be dialing on this hardly ever unless I'm setting that 0. Most of the time, it's just going to be on the elevation turret, and it does have enough feedback there where I can hear it. I can definitely feel it. And the numbers do line up on the witness mark. As I'm actually giving the click for graduations, it's lining right up and back on 0, and I do have the ability to set that myself just like that. Lines up exactly on the witness mark, which is nice to see, and you would expect it in a price point like this with a high quality optic. Looking at the adjustable objective, again, the same thing I'm going to say about the magnification ring. This is just glass, absolutely glass. It has enough firmness there that I trust it. I feel confident in it. I happen to, not that it's 100% important, but I happen to find that these numbers did generally line up. So the indicated range number there, which is more of, it's more of a range, kind of different for each person's eye. I just happen to find that for my eye, it did line up with the witness dot there. It goes down to just maybe a little bit shallow of 20 yards. You could dial or focus in rather very close, just a little under 20 yards. But the first graduation there, the first marking is 20, then it's going to go up to 30. Nice texture on this bell right here. 40, 50, 75, 100, and then you have 300, and this one does have 500, and somewhere in there is 800,000. Then you have infinity. And this absolutely is an optic that you would be shooting probably, pretty far. And so this makes a lot of sense just to see some increased graduation there. It doesn't jump from 100 to infinity. In really cheap hunting optics that have adjustable objectives or sometimes just a side parallax, you'll notice that oftentimes it maybe gives you some of your typical hunting distances, 75, 100, and if it has numbers on there, a lot of times those cheaper optics just jump right to infinity, and it's really just not designed well. This is designed well, and they know that some people are going to be taking shots in excess of 300 or 500 yards, and so it's set up pretty well for that, even though we know most of the time a lot of our hunting shots, we're trying to get close, we're not trying to get far, and so you do have some graduations there for quick markings that I think are going to line up generally or be true enough to get some confidence and pull the trigger. Most modern optics are really going away from putting indicators on there, and the reason that a lot of modern optics don't put indicators on there is because people don't generally understand how to use them, and it has been even though it's pretty simple, it's been an issue for some optics manufacturers where people return an optic or they get frustrated because they don't understand that these are general ranges. They're not meant to be exact or specific necessarily, but it's a nice surprise when it works out. And like I said, for me, it worked out really nicely, and I can quickly move it to those graduations, and it generally lines up for my eye, but I still check it by doing a little bit of a parallax wobble. Something kind of interesting about having longer optics like this that I want to do my best to explain. I'm not a manufacturing expert. I've never worked in that field, but I've been learning about it a little bit. Just been observing some things about this optic and seeing where the start and stop lines are, where things are connected. This is a two-piece here, so there actually is a line right here in the optic. The body of this optic is relatively long. It's actually a benefit, especially for the type of optic that this is and the application that I see most people having with this. So if you have a shorter optic, sometimes it's nice to have short, concise optics, or just a small footprint of an optic. The difficulty is when you have a shorter optic, getting the light to come through with the right angles. I'll just say it that way. I think that's the most simple way to say it. Getting the light to come through with the right angles and transfer and get to your eye without distortion or, mostly it's chromatic aberration. To have a shorter optic that does that well is more difficult. It costs more money. There's more science involved. You have to have just better everything to make that work. And so that costs a lot of money. If you can stretch an optic out a little bit and make it a 34mm tube like this, there's a couple things there. Now, first of all, longer means less availability for internal elevation generally. That's not 100% true with every scope, but generally, the longer an optic it is the harder it is to have a large range of internal elevation. Shorter optics, it's a little easier to angle things out. But then again, you run into some of those lighting issues. You might run into glass issues if you're extending or you're pushing angles really, really hard. So I'm going to say this doesn't have a huge range of internal elevation, but again, it's got a reticle that is designed to solve that problem. And so the 3-15 and this one, just a little bit longer footprint. But what I'm seeing is the payoff, and the payoff is the glass, the quality of the glass, the colors, the trueness, the contrast. All of that adds together to be a really, really nice long-range hunting or plinking target kind of optic. It's going to have some benefits there. So if you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, it's kind of a longer optic, first of all, I don't care. That doesn't bother me at all. It's not an issue because the trade-off is I'm getting a better image by far. So the little bit reduction in internal travel there, it's just not an issue for me. It's not an optic where I'm worried about that because 99% of the time when I'm shooting something like this, let's say beyond 600 yards, I'm going to be focusing on holdovers in the reticle. The way that this is calibrated, the way it's set up, it just makes a lot of sense. Here's some of the stats. Again, it's the 6-24x50 model. It is the S series, and mine has the S1 reticle in it. The field of view at 100 yards is 15 feet down to 4.1 feet. The objective is going to be a 50mm. Okay, it's an adjustable objective. Remember that as well. The eye relief is 3 inches up to 3.5 inches. The total turret travel for that first focal plane is 80 MOA of elevation and 50 MOA of windage. The turret click adjustment value for my model is 1/8 MOA. There is also an MRAD version which has 20 mils of travel, and each click is 1/10 on that particular model. The parallax on my model actually went down to about 20 yards. Tube diameter was 34 millimeters. The overall length was 17.3 inches, and the weight was 31 ounces. And if you need an optic for like that fly-in hunt trip that you have, I don't know, out to Montana or maybe Alaska, some of those wild trips that would be so cool to go on, you need a premium optic. I think this is something that you could look at. It's US glass, okay, it's got US glass in it. It is made in Japan, and it's got that feel of a premium hunting optic. I feel confident taking it really far, and I think the number one selling point in an optic like this, whether you're doing target practice or if you're actually taking it on a hunt to take a serious shot at an animal, some game, is the fact that speed can win. Speed can be so important in these things, and accuracy is not really sacrificed here when you can pair up a reticle and a bullet combination. You can go out and gather your data, your dope, like I did here, and then make successive hits and just give yourself some confidence. Check this one out, or maybe some of these videos if it's interesting to you.